Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening for our information session in relation to the lockdown timetable. A happy new year to one and all as we begin term 2. It's a very strange and stressful time for everybody. So the purpose of this evening is to outline the online learning timetable, which your son would have received through his school email address, to share with you the supports that are available to you from the school, and to give you some practical advice for the coming weeks. So in order to start off, I'll hand you over to our chaplain, Miss Aileen Cawley.
Good evening. My name is Miss Cawley. I am part of the Summerhill College Chaplaincy Department, and I'm delighted to be invited to share this presentation with you this evening.
So thank you to Ms. Cawley for preparing that reflection in advance of this evening's gathering. Just to
Good
say,
evening. My name is Miss Cawley. I am part of the Summerhill College.
So just to say, if anyone have any questions, sorry about that, but if anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type in the chat function, and I'll do my best to answer the questions if I have any, if I have the answer to them. If not, I'll certainly get back to you. As you'll be aware, this is quite a changing situation, so we're doing our best to keep up with the information as we get it. For the most part, any information that the school has received, we've received through the media, very similar to yourselves. So just to be aware that as you're getting the updates, so are we, and responding as quickly as we can. In order to give some insight into how we've developed the current lockdown timetable, which we've given information to your son today via his school email. First, I should say we purposely sent the timetables via your son's school email account because we wanted to ensure that he was able to log into his email account. That's a very, very important step, and that's the first point. So where we've come from in relation to developing this lockdown table, well, first of all, you'll see on screen we've done some feedback from parents and from students. And as you can see on screen, most have used their laptop, then a smartphone, and then a tablet and iPad. In relation to the previous lockdown situation, is your son scheduling his days according to his school timetable? And I suppose what's important there, it's not just when we say his school timetable, that was the full day. So from 8:55 up until the close of normal school. And as you can see, it just wasn't workable. The vast majority found it extremely difficult to stay at the normal school timetable pace for various different reasons. The common feedback and the common themes that we've got back about the timetable was that it suited people to work at different times in the day. That might have been down to access in terms of devices, but also internet, etc. Some find it easier to work. Most found it easier to work actually when it was assigned in the morning to be completed later in the day. And a lot of people were looking for a consistent structure. And I suppose one of the comments from the parent and guardians was our son would benefit from a more interactive and scheduled online program. We responded in kind to a lot of that by creating webinars, and we found they worked quite well towards the end of the last academic year. In relation to the online summer assessments, for those who are in first year, parents of first years, you will be aware of how we ran them, but we distributed students' summer assessments online via Google Form. So the students would complete their assessment, their summer test online, but they were left open for a period of 24 hours so that students would have access to them and could just give people an opportunity. We announced that we were going to be doing this towards the end of April, and we found that it re-engaged students for the remainder of the term. It provided a sense of normality and finality to the end of the year. I suppose there was a high level of engagement in the exams. In our first year cohort from last year, 202 completed the English online summer exam, which is similar to other years at junior cycle because there would be a number of people absent for various different reasons for summer exams. So it was quite a high level of engagement. It also created an opportunity for staff to collaborate and create common exams. The feedback from the students, as you can see on screen, they felt it was certainly less pressurized. They thought it was a lot easier to engage with it. We had an open book format as well, and they kind of find it less stressful, and they weren't as long. And I suppose the other things that you will see on screen in a minute is that they found the opportunity to complete it within 24 hours was very helpful. And I suppose they were able to answer the questions in each assessment. And I think the one there that's kind of important, that kind of stopped me stressing as much, which was a very important piece of feedback. And as you see towards the end of the comments there, it got me back doing work. So the thing about it is the assessments went very well, and I suppose we learned a lot, particularly in the fashion of an open book and the 24 hours, leaving the assessments open for 24 hours. So there's a good bit of learning from that. So it's from that feedback during the previous lockdown that we've come to the point where we've designed our lockdown timetable. Every school is a different approach in regards to how they're responding to the lockdown situation, but based on the feedback that we had during the previous lockdown, we felt that we were going to design the timetable as it stands. It may fluctuate, it may change as the weeks go on if we're extended beyond the proposed 3 weeks, which are proposed at present. But as you can see in the timetable that your son would have received, it's focused on the morning time. There's slots for delivery of content, which will be for 20-25 minutes. And for the most part, there'll be recorded PowerPoint presentations or similar or videos, which will be distributed via your son's Google Classroom. So it's very important that he has all his Google Classroom codes and that he has access to Google Classroom. And what's crucial about it is this means that those who can't work to this timetable, the content will still be available and they can access the information at different points in the day. As part of the content in the morning times, a short task will be assigned for students to be completed later in the day or the week. On the option lines, you would have seen that there may be clashes. So example, TG and engineering, if your son is doing both subjects, it could be scheduled at the same time that the information will go out. However, he might have another slot and another optional subject free, and that's when he can decide when he wants to do it. So he might, in the first instance, decide to go with TG, and then where he has a blank slot, he'll do his engineering. So it may appear that they have a free slot later in the week, but that's not the case. All their slots should be full. It's crucial that your son keeps up to date with the tasks set and then submits them to his teacher on Google Classroom. As I said, the content may not be delivered by his specific individual teacher, but it will be commented on and feedback will be given by his individual teacher. Google Classroom will be the primary platform for delivery of the content. It can be accessed on a smartphone, a tablet, desktop, Xbox, and PlayStation. The details of how to access it, in particular via the Xbox and the PlayStation, has been sent to your son's email account. And a lot of mobile phone companies are opening up unlimited mobile data. And that information has also been sent to your son's email account. So it would be worth checking with your provider to make sure that you have that functionality in place. Again, as I said, the work may not be set by your son's teacher, but it will be corrected and given feedback. Your son's teacher will not be available online at all times during the day. Everybody is in a very difficult situation in terms of trying to keep things going, and every household is different. I know today wasn't an easy day in our household with two people trying to work remotely and to keep things going in terms of homeschooling, etc. But teachers are doing their best to revert with your comments on work in due course. Sometimes there's an expectation of an instantaneous response. That's not possible in this situation. So teachers will revert, and they're doing their best under very difficult circumstances. Some with families and others without a direct family but have responsibilities outside of that. So they are doing their best given the circumstances. In relation to attendance and student engagement, again, it's the responsibility of the student and their parent or guardian. I suppose we've tried to, again, emphasize the point of putting the information out through your son's email account. He's not in primary school anymore. He needs to take responsibility for his work, for his attention to detail and his engagement with work. I know you will do your best to prepare an environment that will be conducive to that, but this is his responsibility. The time in the afternoon, as I said, most of the content is delivered in the morning. The time in the afternoon is for revision and submitting work. Face-to-face tuition via Zoom and Google Meet is not part of the school's remote learning plan, and that's very important. It's not possible to provide this for all staff to provide Zoom and Google Meet. We are making exceptions in terms of supporting students with special educational needs and situations that require pastoral care. We're going to have online assemblies each week for the year group. Some may be pre-recorded and sent like this morning to your son's email account for those who weren't in Leaving Cert. Others will be live. Again, this is just an opportunity to keep them up to date on information. So I'm going to hand you over to Ms. Taylor, who is going to give some advice in relation to study skills and the resources that we have available here in the school.
Hi there, my name is Maria Taylor and I'm one of the guidance counsellors here in Summerhill College, along with my colleague David Keneally. And if you'd like to contact us at any stage, please do so by email. So today we'd like to talk to you about study resources and studying during this particular time. The first thing students need to do is organise the study space. It's really difficult, I know, when there's so many people working from one home, and it is difficult to make hard and fast rules about this. But first and foremost, students should try to keep whatever study space they have neat and tidy, and this can be more difficult for some students rather than others. And this will help students stay calm and feel more organised and probably less likely that they will lose things as well. I suppose if this prolonged period, if it becomes a prolonged period, students could change their workspace to provide some variety, but this might not always be available. But just whatever space students are working in, make sure that they have good posture at all times. And also try and work in a quiet room if possible as well for optimum conditions. Our phones are probably our biggest distractions, and if students are working on a PC or tablet, they should try and leave their phone in another room. They could use their phone as a treat and just check messages at break times only. One thing we would like to avoid as much as possible is students feeling isolated, so please stay in touch with classmates. And we know that everybody's using Zoom and other platforms to meet up with each other these days, but remember that you can also use these platforms to study with somebody this way as well. So set up a small studies group, perhaps 2, 3, possibly 4 students, and they can meet maybe once, twice a week and go over assignments and homework together. And it could provide a really nice space for students just to discuss their progress. So how do you study best? So we're going to have a quick look at the various types of study techniques as laid out on the Summerhill College website and all the resources that we've made available for students. So what we've done is we have put together a group of topics here for each year group. So for first years here, you can see that we've provided how to use Google Classrooms for students, and that can also be used for parents. Learning to Learn is a great resource, and this is being provided by the Institute of Guidance Counsellors. Now, there's a huge amount of information available here, but you can pick and choose what topics may be useful for your son and go through that, or allow him to go through that with him as well. There's also some nice study tips for students with dyslexia from the Dyslexia Association of Ireland, and that can be a very helpful resource as well. For anybody in junior house, but particularly I suppose second years and third years, there's a nice booklet here that we put together for students as well, giving a whole list of resources that are available. So if possible, this can be printed off, but if not, that's okay too. It can be used on the screen, and students can go through and answer these questions about it as they're going through this information. First of all, I suppose it's looking at all the different types of learning, whether it's visual, whether it's auditory or kinesthetic learning, and students can spend time, I suppose, looking at how best do they learn. So whether it's, for example, for auditory learners, whether it's participating in discussions, recording yourself on your iPod, or listening to recordings, explaining concepts out loud. And all of these approaches can be very useful, but it's really, I suppose, allowing students to develop their own approach to studying. One of the best resources that we have and the best approaches, I think, is the SQ3R method. And it really is about effective reading. So how to use their time effectively, that they're just not wasting time and they're actually maximizing their time while they're studying. So I would suggest to students to take their time over this and go through it and actually follow the process there in when they are doing study. The Freyer model is also a very useful way of separating their information into definitions, examples, non-examples, and facts and characteristics. And there are examples here of how to apply that to mathematics, how to apply it to history, and also how to apply it to English as well. Some students love doing mind maps, and it can be a really great creative way of putting together information in a really kind of useful, colourful way. There's examples here as well, so it can be a really nice approach for an awful lot of students who are good visual learners. There's also a nice section here about memory and concentration, how important it is to practice every day and to go back over information repeatedly. For our transition years, we have been working with them in school on the Transition Year Guidance Programme. We did a 6-week module at the very beginning of September, October with them, and they can continue to go through that themselves. There's also a really good booklet here, First Leading's Career Development Workbook for Transition Years, and that's excellent. That was designed by University of Limerick, and it can be a really useful booklet to go through as well. For 5th years and 6th years, we have a section here, and we put together a booklet for them about studying guidance, the guidance program here as well. So the first section here is about getting organised and studying in a very smart way. There's also a nice section here from Professor Diane Dweck from Stanford University about having a fixed and a growth mindset, and there's a nice video there that goes along with that. So I'd suggest that students sit down and look at all the approaches that we have listed out here. The SQ3OR is listed here again for students, as well as this one here, which is the Cornell notes. And again, that can be really useful for senior students as well. There's also a nice section here about how to put together a revision plan, and also about keeping healthy and balanced. In each of the sections as well, we have added in just about minding your health, and also about what is anxiety, about, I suppose, how to approach discussing that with your son, and maybe seeking help if that's something that you need to do. So hopefully that has been a nice introduction to all the resources that we have available on the Summerhill College website. And if you would like to contact us, please do so at any time. Thank you.
So again, thank you to the guidance department for preparing that in advance of our evening this evening. Just a final few points that supports that are available. If your son needs to borrow a Chromebook from the school, please do email us, info@summerhillcollege.ie. We're doing our best to try and provide as much as we can in terms of additional support to students. And we know that there's a lot of pressure on devices in households, so feel free to avail of that. If you have any further concerns about how your son is getting on, either academically or from a pastoral care perspective, please also don't be afraid to email the above account, and a member of staff will be in touch. As you'd appreciate at this time, once we go to remote learning, the emails start building up an awful lot, so do bear with us, but we'll do our very best to get back to you as soon as possible. So again, Ms. Taylor mentioned about supporting your son's well-being during level 5. There's a few things that we want to suggest along with the bits and pieces that have also been suggested today. Just to emphasize the need for him to remain positive and calm. This will pass, and we will get back to school, please God, sooner rather than later. Not everything will go right in terms of remote learning. I know there was a situation today where the schedule didn't work, and work wasn't sent out at the right time. These things happen. Try to remain positive and calm, and encourage your son that these things will happen. It's not perfect, and such is life. And if there is an opportunity where there is a gap, get him to do revision in that spot, or maybe it's an opportunity for him to pick up a book. Encourage your son to remain connected to his friends in a safe way using technology, as Ms. Taylor suggested as well, study groups, etc. But please make sure that he has a shut-off time in the evening time. If you want to keep him going in some kind of routine, it's important that he shuts off from technology. The students know that this is a big one of mine, and I always suggest by at least 7:30 in the evening, students should be leaving their phone to the side. Encourage your son to get regular exercise and fresh air where possible within the restrictions, and certainly within the weather at the moment. Take the console out of his own hand. I know that I said that we can use Xbox and PlayStation 2, but he needs to take the console out of his hand if he's just using it to play computer games, etc., and put a book in it. Immerse himself in a book. It will do him the world of good. Crucial one that we want to suggest: teach him to cook a meal. It will be something that will definitely stand to him. A lot of the time, the boys, unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, are very well looked after, but this is unfortunate consequences into the future. So I would encourage you to please teach your son how to cook meals over the next number of weeks. And then last, very importantly, make sure he has jobs around the house. It's absolutely crucial that he's involved in the running of the household, particularly during this level 5 lockdown. Finally, we need your support now more than ever, working together to keep each other safe. Please encourage your son to follow the COVID guidelines to keep everyone safe so that we can return to our normal lives sooner rather than later. We ask you again to reinforce this message with your son that he adheres to all the restrictions that are in place at present, to bring the numbers down and to take pressure off our healthcare workers. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat function. If you don't, that concludes our evening. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. And if you have any further information, or if you require any further information, email us at info@summerhillcollege.ie or phone us at 071 91 603 11. Please do get in touch if there's something that you need help with.